his life. And I really do feel that when people explain these things, they don't really explain it very well. So hopefully, and hopefully you've seen some of my content on TikTok, and you think, okay, this guy knows what he's talking about. But now I'm going to show you, I don't just know what I'm talking about. I actually do this stuff every single day. So without further delay, just to check oh, there you go. Oh, can everyone see the red? Can everyone see the pen? Because that's okay. So again, just let's do a quick introduction to me. I know a lot of people know me here. Alhamdulillah, thank you, Mashari. So, but you know, the essence is that my name is Fahad Habib. I've been in Saudi for like 15 years, but prior to which, you know, I started my career in BlackRock. I'm an ex-director in KPMG Saudi Arabia, and then over the last 7-8 years, I built my own businesses in Saudi. And alhamdulillah, you know, they've been relatively successful. So I'm now on TikTok. So yeah, that's my story, man. And this right here is the most beautiful girl in the world. That is, mashallah, my Sophia. So technically I'm Abu Sophia, but Abu PowerPoint is my stage name, right? So let's go. Now, today, what we're going to do, inshallah, is we're going to try to cover 4 things, right? I would like to initially start off by discussing some consulting context, right? Because the idea here is ChatGPT as a tool it's a brilliant tool, right? ChatGPT is awesome. But as always, I start always with context. You've got to start with context. And if you don't have the right context, the tool, ChatGPT is like, it loves to please you. It will just say whatever you want it to make you happy. And as a result of which, you know, you have to give it the right context in order to get the best possible outcomes from it. So we're going to talk about some consulting context because that's the world in which I operate. Then I want to talk about some ChatGPT 101 basics introductions that I think everyone can learn from, inshallah. Then we're going to do a case study. Then we're going to do a case study, and then, I mean, throughout we can do Q&A. If anyone has any interesting comments, Osman will stop me and I'll say, bro, speak, please answer that particular question. So what am I supposed to do? It should have been more considerate with the platform. Maybe you should have paid. You know what I'm saying? I woke up at 3 a.m. for you guys today to get this moving, and people are complaining about the platform. Anyway, I need these comments to go away, man. Otherwise I'm going to be constantly distracted. You know what I mean? You see, Mishari, ungrateful, man. You should have been more considerate. Maybe you should have paid. Anyway. So let's talk about consulting context. Now, let's start off with, what do consultants actually do, right? So whenever I explain this to people, I always say to them, you know, we are professional problem solvers. That's what we are. We help large organizations and large government organizations and private sector organizations. We help them solve their problems. So so we've got the private sector, right? And we have the public sector. These are the clients for most people, right? It's like either private or public. But in essence, what we help them do is help them design. I mean, look, think about it, right? The private sector and the public sector are basically making decisions every single day. And as a function of making decisions every single day, they're making decisions which have huge impacts, right? So the public sector might say, for example, hey guys, we need to build a new city, for example, right? That's going to cost us $10 billion, right? So a consultant would come in and then help them justify whether this is a good or bad idea. We'll help analyze whether this makes sense economically, strategically, financially, operationally, regulatory, and so on, right? Because when you're making a $10 billion decision, you need to make sure that you've got all of your I's dotted and all your T's crossed, right? So that's what we do. Now, on the private sector side, as you can imagine, private sector companies have major issues. They have to make decisions. So they have to decide whether they're going to invest, you know, $10 million in a new marketing campaign, for example. You know, their revenues have decreased by 20%, for example. So again, you know, as a result of these, and some corporates are doing 100 million reals turnover, $100 million turnover, 1 billion. So again, whenever you're making big decisions, you bring in and you call in the professional problem solvers, right? And of course, a lot of people say, what chat consultants don't do anything and so on. But if that were the case, if consultants legitimately didn't add value, then fundamentally no one would use them, right? Why would anyone spend millions of dollars on a consultant if they don't use them? So inherently, we solve problems for the private sector as well as the public sector. The public sector have different priorities to the private sector, but inherently, the skill set that we have as consultants is unanimous between the two, right? It's the same skill set, and we can apply it in two different contexts, right? So what are these actual skills? Now, I discussed this in detail with a lot of... I've been doing this now for, mashallah, alhamdulillah, for, as in teaching this stuff for 5 years. And as a part of teaching this, I always start off with the main thing that you have to be very good at if you want to be a good consultant is understand the context, right? That's the key element here, is context. Now, when we talk about context, what does that mean? And I always like to give an example of a dentist, right? Because a dentist approach to solving a toothache is very similar to how we as consultants have to solve a business or a government's problem, right? So whenever you have a toothache, and I hope you don't, because it's the worst pain ever, right? Because it's difficult to solve that problem. But when you have a toothache, what do? You ask your friends, you ask your mom, you ask your family, man, I got bad toothache, what do I do? And the first thing they say to you is, hey, bro, listen, what you need to do is you need to get some oil, you need to rub it on your tooth. What you need to do is, everyone jumps into the remedy. This is how you solve the problem, right? But if you ask, which tooth is hurting, right? Which tooth, right? They will ask you, when did it start hurting, right? They'll ask you, how bad is the pain, right? And what are they doing by asking you these questions, right? How often do you brush your teeth? When's the last time you went to the dentist? What are they doing? They are, in essence, these guys are asking you they're asking you these questions to build a context, right? And only once you've built that context are you genuinely able to solve a problem. So context is key to solving problems. And if we are professional problem solvers, the first skill that we have to be able to be fluent in or excellent in is solving problems and developing context, right? That's skill number one. And I promise you that's not as easy as it seems. Everyone in their CV writes they're a problem solver, right? Problem solving isn't, and I want you guys to be clear about this, problem solving isn't just, by the way, I organize the filing cabinet on a color basis or putting it into, alphabetical order, for example. I mean, yes, that's problem solving, but that's like the most basic stuff, right? When we're talking about problems, again, if we go back to context, we're helping these guys with their problem, private and public sector. We're talking about massive decisions, $10 billion, $100 million, right? So in order to help those people make those decisions, the context and the problem solving is much more complicated, and it's much more dynamic. So things are happening at the same time. If you move one thing, what is the impact on something else? So that's the point here, right? So that's skill number one, but that's not the only skill you need. So once you've solved the problem, or once you think you've solved the problem, you need to justify how and why you've solved that problem. So the skill that you need, number two, is analysis, right? Now, the analysis skill that we as consultants use most often is usually around Excel, or what most people, kind of non-consultants, will call business analysis, right? So in essence, what we will be doing is looking at data, financial data, operational data, and we'll be trying to effectively find the rationale or the justification that the problem that we've identified through the context and the solutions we're suggesting are aligned, right? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to quantifiably explain that our rationale is correct, right? That's what the analysis is supposed to do. And the key actual skill that we do here is financial modeling, right? And again, I would encourage everyone to Google what financial modeling is, and we will do sessions on this. So don't think that we're not. We will definitely be doing sessions on this. But Google it. Think ahead. Don't wait for me, right? I'm only one person. So think ahead and do it, inshallah. Now, so again, let's go through this as a process, right? So number one, what have we done so far? We've understood the context in order to solve the problem or come up with some options for solving the problem. Then we have to justify it, right? That's usually through Excel, which is the platform we use, Microsoft Excel. And the actual skill set is financial modeling. So once we've done that, right, now again, remember, who are we consulting? We are consulting big senior government and private sector decisions. In order to communicate that, our solutions, our context, to ensure that we're on the same page, and the analysis, we have to put it in a format in which they are going to be able to digest it, right? And what is that format? Presentations, right? Whether we like to admit it or not, and I know a lot of people make jokes about consultants saying, oh man, you guys, all you do is pretty presentations and stuff. The reality is, a presentation is a communication tool. That's it. If a presentation is a communication tool, there is a technique of how to do it properly. There is best practice, whether it's formatting, whether it's how you tell the story, what's important to be kept in, what's not, and so on and so forth, right? You have to bear that all in mind. And as a result of which, the storyboard of that presentation, the formatting, imagine like, and again, people get at me and I know they're joking, but the reality is the consulting industry is worth billions, hundreds of billions, if not, right? And if these skills were useless, that would not be $100 billion industry. In fact, it's multiple $100 billion industry. I think just the combined revenues of the big four is about $100 billion, right? Dollars. So it's definitely significantly more than that. So short story is, step one of the skills you need is understanding the context, like a dentist, stop and ask questions. Then you solve the problem to identify potential options. Then you try to justify it, number one, by using data, whether that's financial and operational. Then you document it in a presentation with a storyboard, the right formatting. And again, the way to understand it is and I see a lot of people do this. A lot of people say, for example, hey, listen, man, my presentations suck, but the analysis is good. Now, just imagine if you were trying to sell a car and your car, the engine is working perfectly and it's purring nicely, right? But then you didn't wash it. What's going to happen when the guy comes to see it to buy it? It's going to be a disaster. Yes, and Mishari, we will do lots of sessions on PowerPoint, inshallah. Don't worry about it, bro. Right? So the short story is, presentation, storyboarding, formatting, alhamdulillah, these things are very, very important in our world, right? And remember, you're meeting big CEOs, big ministers and stuff like that. So you have to have it looking and feeling a certain way, because otherwise they won't feel the confidence that you know what you're doing, right? So there's that. And finally, and again, alhamdulillah, thank you. I get a lot of compliments about this. The final key skill is communication, right? Which is, you got to be decent at communicating, because again, the types of people you're dealing with are very senior people with very little time. And if that is the case, right, then surely you need to speak the language they speak, which I call the language of decision makers, right? So the language of decision makers. So what is the language of decision makers? The language of decision makers is revenue, profit, loss, costs, KPIs, balanced scorecard, whatever you may have, operating models, HR, org structure. You need to be able to speak in the same language as those guys. Otherwise, you will lose them. Now, so anyway, the point is that these are the core skills you need. Now, I want to contextualize that in the context of our topic today, which is ChatGPT, right? Now, ChatGPT as a tool really, really, really is obviously very useful, right? But there are some things that ChatGPT does better than humans, and there are some things it doesn't, at least today. And that might change. ChatGPT might completely replace me, and eventually I might just be an avatar and I'm just, lying in bed doing nothing. And there's a digital version of me which completely does all of these sessions, right? But I want you to understand now, when it comes to context, ChatGPT is not good at context. You have to give it the context, right? It's not good at that. In terms of identifying what the problems are, it's pretty good at doing that if you give it the right context and the right inputs, right? Absolutely. From an analysis side, so ChatGPT, when it comes to context, not very good, but solving problems, very good, right? When it comes to doing analysis, there is no comparison. ChatGPT will kick your ass. So if you ever see, we will need ChatGPT to translate the handwriting. Absolutely. Do you know what it is? It's because I can't flip my screen around because I need to be able to do it on TikTok. So I'm going to figure this out. Don't worry, guys. Now, ChatGPT, in terms of analysis, it will kick anyone's ass when it comes to analysis, right? So that's why I always give this advice, guys, stop trying to be the technical number cruncher, because the technical number cruncher is going to be replaced 1,000,000%, right? Now, is ChatGPT any good at presentations? Hell to the no. It's terrible at presentations. Terrible, terrible. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be like that forever, but it's not there yet. And is ChatGPT good at communicating? Yeah, I mean, if you're presenting, if you're communicating via I don't know, like some kind of text message system or something, right? Then yeah, it's great. But no executive in the near future is going to say, you know what, I don't need to see you, Fahad. I'm happy to speak with your AI bot. That's not going to happen anytime soon. So, in summary, right? There are some amazing key skills within consulting which are super relevant, which is context, problem solving, analysis, presentations, and communications. And ChatGPT fundamentally is able to replace human beings in some of these things, right? To different degrees. So what we're going to do today, inshallah, is focus on what it can and can't do. Because what I don't want to tell you guys is I don't want to tell you guys do this and don't do this, but I want to show you where it works well and where it doesn't. So let's keep it. Solving problems, like I said, is not as simple as just being able to sort out a filing cabinet, right? Solving problems for large governments making decisions worth billions of dollars, or large private sector companies, it's dynamic. The problems change, and if you change one element, it changes another element. It has a knock-on effect. So what I try to do is explain consulting, the types of problems we solve from a Rubik's Cube perspective. Because when you do it in a Rubik's Cube, you change one side and it has an impact on the other. It's exactly that, right? So the consulting Rubik's Cube is that you're talking about the direction, right, of a business. You're talking about the operations of a business or an organization, and you're talking about the business model, right? So generally speaking, whenever you're solving problems for organizations, all right, let's just talk about the private sector for the timing. Let's talk about Pepsi, for example. If you're helping an organization like Pepsi, whenever you change one of these three things, it will have a knock-on effect on the other, right? So this is like it's like a, I don't know, it is like a Rubik's Cube, right? And that's what I'm trying to demonstrate here. So, and we normally help organizations in three ways, which is helping them with their direction, helping them with their operations, and helping them with their business model. But what do these three things mean? Because I know everyone talks about these things, but what do they actually mean? Now, when we talk about direction, right, this actually refers to the what, right? And the what refers to, in our world, in terms of the language of decision makers, the strategy. What are we going to do, right? That's what that refers to. Now, the business model refers to how are we going to make the money, right? So this is the money side of the business, right? And therefore, this refers to the why. Why do we exist, right? And the why, for me, is the money. We do it for money, right? So let's just be clear about that. And the operations refers to the how, right? So how are we going to make things happen? What, why, and how? Exactly, Sheikh Habibi, right? It's a wild name, but anyway. Cool? So these are the three things, okay? And the how, in the language of decision makers, refers to the operating model, right? So I'm going to go one level deeper now, right? So one level deeper, whenever someone talks about strategy, what they're referring to is the vision, the mission, objectives, and the initiatives, right? This is what they're referring to. That's what a strategy is. So the vision and the mission, the first two parts of a strategy is the vision and mission, and that effectively gives you the direction. That tells you where you are trying to go, the direction of whatever you're trying to do. In order to manifest that, in order for that to come to life, you have to have some very clear objectives, and those objectives then need to be translated into projects, right? So these two become the implementation part of strategy, right? So if, for example, you're Pepsi and your vision and mission is that, hey man, we need to start penetrating the market, your vision and mission will reflect that. It will say, we are trying to get big in the hell no, not the small box. Sorry guys, I'm gonna fix this, don't worry. At some point we will fix this, right? So the point is that the vision and mission is the direction, and in order to implement that direction, you have to have objectives, which are kind of, okay, I want to achieve number of sales by this point in time, and then you turn that into a project. That's when it becomes an initiative, right? Now, once you've created objectives and initiatives, you have to implement those, right? And that implementation of that, so again, let's talk about the Pepsi case, right? Now, in terms of Pepsi, if you want to create a new energy drink, you need to start thinking about your product, right? You need to start thinking about the price for that product. You need to start thinking about where you're going to sell it, the place, and you need to start thinking about how you're going to promote it, right? So this is what most people refer to as the 4 Ps: product, price, place, promotion. So again, we have a direction, which is we need to get into the energy market, energy drinks market. We've created some objectives and initiatives that will have a direct impact on our product, price, place, promotion. So I hope that makes sense, number one, yeah? But in order for us to then, again, to legitimately get to a point where we can actually have a valid conversation around this, you know, in terms of actually making it happen, then we need to think about our people, right? Do we have the right people? Are they organized in the right way? Are they qualified, right? Should we in-house those people or should we outsource those people, right? You have to have those conversations because you need to figure out, okay, we know what we want to do. We know why we're doing it, but how are we going to do it? So we need to make sure we have right underlying our business, and we need to make sure that our decision-making is supported with governance, like robust governance. And so again, if we talk about Pepsi in the context of Pepsi wanting to introduce itself into the energy drinks market, we need to think of it from the perspective of what is it we're trying to do? We want to enter the drinks market, the energy drinks market. What product? Do we have the right people? Do we have the right processes? Do we have the right technology? Do we have the right governance? Does that make sense, guys? I hope it makes sense. I appreciate I appreciate you can't answer. I can't read. If I start reading, I'm gonna just screw everything up, right? And again, the point of this is right is that anytime you make a decision, so even if you start making decisions here, it will have an impact here. And if you make a decision here, it will have an impact here. So this is 100% dynamic, and this is why I call it a Rubik's Cube, right? So again, the Rubik's Cube is that you're constantly doing that to the Rubik's Cube, right? And every time you do it, make an adjustment, it has an effect somewhere else. So that's the Rubik's Cube analogy. And that's what consultants are doing every single day. They're just trying to balance these 12 boxes. And these 12 boxes, I call it the boost, the B12 framework, because it's just 12 boxes, right? That's it. That's all we're trying to do, right? The B12 frame boxes. And I know my handwriting is a little bit difficult to read right now. Henceforth, what I did to make your life easier is I prepared this, right? And again, this should give you an idea of the consulting process, right? So whenever someone wants you to help them with some kind of consulting support or any, or either, let's drop the word consulting. Let's just call it, if someone wants you to help them and you want to help them in a structured way, right? It's not a B12 matrix, it's the B12 framework, Pardesi. Sorry. Yeah. It's a framework, not a matrix. Okay. So if someone ever wants to help you, this is how you should try to visualize that help. So very clearly, you need some clear inputs. You need to do some level of internal assessment. Again, understanding internally, what is that business today, right? You need to be able to do that. You need to do some level of external assessment to understand what's happening in the market around us, right? And you need to ask very clearly the guy who's responsible for it, what do you think, bro? What do you want to try and achieve, right? I just saw a question which threw me off, which is this an agile approach? Bro, this has nothing to do with agile. Agile is to do with sprints, which is to normally do with technology rollouts. So let's ignore agile and all that stuff. Sorry, I had to answer that, but yeah. So again, when you're helping someone and you want it to be structured, we focus on inputs. What is the internal assessment? What are you looking at internally? Do I have the capability? Do I have the investment capacity? Do I have the risk appetite, and so on, right? That's one part of it. The external assessment could be, how is the market? Is the market receptive to what we're trying to do, right? And then the stakeholder engagement is, bro, do you even want to do this, right? So whenever you're trying to help someone in a structured way, you think of it internally, you think of it externally, and you think of it from the stakeholder's perspective. And then you do the B12, right? This is the B12 framework, not matrix, right? Is everyone cool with that, right? And the outcome of that could be multiple different things. You could help them, okay, I can help you prepare a strategy, I can help you prepare a business plan, an operating model, a balanced scorecard, a roadmap, right? But the point is, you have to go through this structured process in order to get to that output point, right? So yeah, so Pardesi, micro and macro environment, that would be as part of the external assessment, right? So I hope that contextualizes what we said. Now, what I want to do is very quickly, let's just do a quick recap, because I appreciate some people joined very late. And hopefully, guys, hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, sometimes you need third-party help, right? So if anyone says consultants don't do anything, consultants take the pressure of helping big decision makers make decisions. That's it. That's number one, right? Point number one. Now, point number two, what are the key skills you need to be a good consultant? You need to understand context. And context for me is like spider sense. You have to, like with Spider-Man, he can detect something's happening. When you're asking questions about context, you're building your spider sense. And then your spider sense will help you come up with some initial solutions, right? So that's part one. Part two, solutions, right? So that's part one. Part two, rationalize and justify what they're talking about. They have to create presentations in order to explain what they're saying, because some of the stuff is very complicated, and the world in which we work is with very large, very senior decision makers. They don't read things before you meet them, so you need to structure things in a way in which they are able to digest. And you've got to be super awesome at communicating, because if you're not, no one's going to let you go speak to a client, right? And the point I was making is that ChatGPT has an impact on each of these to a different degree. And analysis, man, in the future, I don't think anyone's going to be doing analysis. ChatGPT will do it much better, right? I think this part of this framework will naturally become more and more ChatGPT focused. But again, ChatGPT is reliant upon your inputs. So again, having your spider sense really sharp is very important here, right? In terms of presentations, today ChatGPT is terrible at presentations, but I can imagine that not being the case in the future. In terms of communicating, I can't imagine in the near future where senior decision makers will say, I'm happy to speak to a robot, not to a human being. So in that sense, these are the key skills that you need to be a good consultant, but ChatGPT is obviously going to replace some of that. So that's that now.
Really good question here.
Yo.
What if the decision is wrong and the business essentially uses money?
If the decision, okay, so normally how this would work, right, is when you work with a client, the client would have an idea of what they think the problem is. They will then have an idea of what they think the solution is. Our job as a consultant, right, on paper, like in theory, in best practice, is to be independent, is to say, hey, listen, man, we think you're doing this the wrong way. What you should do is this. But in many instances, and that the reason I put a caveat to that, in many instances, consultants end up just helping someone make a decision that they've already made, if you know what I'm saying. And that's not really best practice, but sometimes that's what that, you know, you have to figure it out on a project as to whether or not that's a good way forward or not. You know, that's what it boils down to. So let's continue. Now, as I mentioned, the consulting frameworks that we use is like a Rubik's Cube. If you change one thing, it has an it has an impact on something else. And the three elements are strategy, business planning, and operating models. So again, our job as a consultant is to figure out, okay, where the problems are, where the solutions are, and what they need to be in order for us to give some good advice. That's what we're doing. And the way that works as a process is we need some very clear inputs, right? We need some very clear inputs from an assessment perspective. We can look at the existing organization's data. We can look at, you know, internally what's happening, what's not happening. We need to look at externally what's happening, what's not happening. And then we need to ask the actual person in charge, what do they think should happen? And based upon which, we can then start configuring our B12 framework. And based on that framework, we should then be able to come out with some pretty clear outcomes. And that's what we need to discuss with the stakeholder. What is it that you want from us? Do you want a strategy, business plan, operating model? Maybe you want all three, right? Maybe you want all three. Maybe you want all three plus a roadmap, right? So again, that's the essence of consulting, right? That's the backbone of consulting. Now, I want to show you in a very basic way, right, how to do this in a structured way. So we've already understood, and again, I'm going to try my best to write neatly, but it is proving to be difficult, right? So we have here vision, right? That's the first thing, right? We have our vision, we have our mission, we have here our objectives, and we have here our initiatives, right? Then we have our business model. So that's the product that we're selling. We have the price, we have the place we're selling it, and we have the promotion, how we're going to market it, right? And then from an operating model, which is the how, we have our people, we have our processes, we have our tech, and we have our governance, right? So the problem that we were discussing earlier is that, or rather the challenge that we're trying to unpack, is Pepsi wants and sell a new energy drink, right? That's what Pepsi is trying to achieve. Now, if it's trying to do that, today, Pepsi's vision and mission is about carbonated drinks and snacks, right? So based upon this need, they will have to update their vision and mission. And because their current portfolio of objectives and initiatives has nothing to do with energy drinks, absolutely, we will have to update their objectives and initiatives. And because we're updating their objectives and initiatives, because they don't currently sell energy drinks, we will need to look at what is their new product strategy, what is the price point of that, where are they going to sell it, and how are they going to promote it. And then we need to look at it from an operating model perspective. Okay, oops, sorry. Right, and then from that perspective, we need to see how many people do you have, how many people do you need to hire new people who are experts in energy drinks, or can we upskill our team internally? Do we need to change our processes because we're no longer building this product in-house? We're going to use a third party, we're going to use their factory because we don't have the capacity to build that in our these new cans, etc., in our current place. You know, what types of technologies do we need? Do we need new technologies, and do we need to change our governance structure, right? And a B12 framework, what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify what are the symptoms, right? So the symptoms here would be underlying, why are we trying to enter the energy drinks market, right? Is it because our low sales? Is it because the competitors are doing really well, right? That's what we're trying to identify. All right. So the symptoms will tell you, okay, but the symptoms are different to a root cause. A root cause is the actual underlying issue, whereas a symptom is just an indicator. So we're looking for indicators and we're trying to get to a root cause. Now, the root cause could be that actually our sales have dropped by 20%, right? Specifically against Red Bull, for example, right? Red Bull. So now we've identified the root cause. We've looked in our data, we found some symptoms. We looked in the market, we found some symptoms, but we're telling you that the root cause is that we've lost 20% market sales. So from a solution perspective, if we want to enter the energy drinks market, what would we do? Right? What would we do? We would have to design a new product, right? We would need a new product. We'd need to determine the price for that product. We'd need to find out where we're going to sell it, can we sell it in the same place, and how we're going to promote it. But at the same time, what we need to do in order to make that reality rather than just on paper, we need to understand what is the impact of that on our people, on our processes, on our technology, and our governance. And in order to make that all come to life, we need to make sure it's reflected in our strategy. All right. So I hope that kind of makes sense. But at that point, we can say, yep, based on our work, based on our homework, based on our research, based on all the stuff that we've looked at, we're going to create, we're going to create a new energy drink. And the impact will be is that the sales of this energy drink will be 400 million reals within 5 years. And that should take care of this. You know, that's what we're trying to do when we're doing problem solving and kind of in a structured way. Right. So again, we normally work in consulting without ChatGPT. And again, this is the context of who I am, right? I'm not going to tell you how to use ChatGPT to do marketing because I don't use it to do marketing, right? So we've understood the context of consulting. Now let's understand how ChatGPT can actually help us. So the first thing to note, right? Appreciate that might just sound like, what? Obviously it's not Google. But I see a lot of people using ChatGPT like Google. Now, the best use of Google is to give it a very small direction as to what you're trying to make it do. So if you're looking for some kind of, if you're looking for data on Google, right? What would you tell Google? You would say to Google, hey Google, you would say something like World Bank employment women's employment data 2020, right? That's a brilliant way of searching on Google. But if you did this same thing on ChatGPT, it is an absolute disaster, right? That is not how you behave, that's not how you treat ChatGPT. And I'm gonna now humanize ChatGPT, even though it's not a human. I'm gonna try to humanize it, right? But the point is that you cannot use Google and ChatGPT in the same way. Now, I always say to people, the best way, therefore, to use ChatGPT is you need to pretend that ChatGPT is the new guy on your team, the guy that knows absolutely nothing but is insanely smart. That's how you use ChatGPT, right? And this is obviously a little consulting joke that I've just completed my consulting internship and I look like I'm 60 years old. That's what will happen to the vast majority of you if you ever do join consulting, right? It ages you badly. Obviously, fountain of youth here, alhamdulillah, but consulting will age you badly. So I want everyone to understand, number one, you do not use ChatGPT as if you're using Google. Very different skills. And I remember this, right? Before ChatGPT existed, I used to sometimes sit with my team and I used to watch them, how they used to Google information. I'm like, bro, you stupid, man. You don't even know how to use Google properly. Because even people struggled with how to search for information on Google, right? You have to figure out how to use Google effectively, right? And it's the same process with ChatGPT. You got to figure it out. Now, what I'm going to show you now is how I figured it out to actually make it useful for my life, right? And this is the formula. This is the formula of how you use ChatGPT. First, you have to, so step one, right? You have to tell it how to act. Because when you're talking to like the new guy on your team, you have to say, hey bro, this is who you are now. You're no longer a fresh graduate. You are now a consultant. Understood? Yes, bro, I understand. I'm a consultant. So you have to explain to it how to act, right? So you have to give it a very specific persona, right? You have to give it a very clear direction of, I want you to behave like this now. You understand? Yes, I understand, right? Then you have to give it some real context, right? Because like I said earlier, from a context perspective, it is really poor. You know, you're like, ChatGPT will try its best to please you and just give you random dumps of information again and again and again, and it's just a disaster, right? Then, so after you've given it the context, right, you have to give it some clear inputs. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but ChatGPT can handle lots of different types of inputs. So I'm not going to try and confuse you guys by showing you the different types of inputs, but it can handle text inputs, it can handle data inputs, and it can handle picture inputs, which is really impressive, right? So you can copy and paste things into ChatGPT and it can handle it. And so once you've done that, then you can give it an instruction, right? After you've done all these three things, then you can say, I need the following, right? So, but every step of the way, right, in order to really, really utilize ChatGPT effectively, right, what you need to be doing at every single point, as you would with like a new guy on the team, is you need to ask them, do you understand? You need to ask them again, do you understand? Right? And every time you're going to ask them the same thing. Do you understand? Right? And I promise you, this prompt is worth you waking up at whatever time you've woken up this morning, just so that if you leave today's meeting, right, understanding that this is the most important thing that you can ask ChatGPT is whether it understands or not. You're already better at ChatGPT just by doing that, right? So now that we understand this formula, and this is a process, right? Maybe it's not a formula, it's more of a process than a formula, right? To open up your laptop and I'll show you this in front of you, right? So the framework job to give the input, the instruction to ChatGPT. So if you put that into ChatGPT, it's going to give you some nonsense, right? It's just going to make some stuff up. But the reason I kept this case study as vague as this is because I want you to know that it's your job to do it. It's a tool in which the input will get the quality of the input will determine the quality of the output and the structuring of that, right? So I'm now going to open up my ChatGPT and let's get into some ChatGPT. So this is what we're going to use, right? So here we go. So let's go back to my PowerPoint slide. So the first thing we're going to do is, let me just make this bigger because we're going to come back to this again and again, right? First thing we're going to do is tell it how to act, right? So the first thing I always do with my ChatGPT is act like an expert management consultant, right? That's the first thing. And what do I say to that? Do you understand? Step one, right? So I'm going through it exactly how I told you I was going to do it. So number one, absolutely, I understand. I approach everything with the mindset of rigor, of an insights, clear problem solving, and practical, actionable recommendations. How can I assist you today? Excellent. And again, I always give it reaffirming language because I want it to understand that I'm thinking of it like a human being, and I want it to think in the most natural way possible. So I always reaffirm, great, thank you. And I know it sounds stupid to say thank you to a machine, but man, you got to be a scumbag not to say thank you to to ChatGPT. Anyway, so excellent. We have been asked, right, so let's go back to our thing. We have been asked by a client to answer to help them determine what they should do with their land, right? Accordingly, and this is where the frameworks that we've discussed become very helpful. Accordingly, we need to send him a questionnaire on what so we need to send a questionnaire with details of the information we require, right? I would like to structure. All right, let's keep it simple. What do you understand so far? Right? Again, let's see what it comes back with. So you've been encouraged by the client to help them decide the optimal use for land. Before you can provide any meaningful recommendations, you need to gather relevant information, right? So we're going back to this approach thing that we had done, right? About context and solving problems, etc. We're going this, and I appreciate it looks like an absolute mess, but I promise you it will make sense on ChatGPT, right? So you've been okay. Objective, help the client. Great. I want to ensure we capture the requisite inputs in order to be able to give him the best way forward in consideration of his personal context. That's number one, in his personal context, market context, right? So we've got internal, we've got external, and his ambitions, which is the third point. So what am I doing here, right? What am I doing here? What I've just done here is this, the consulting process. I'm telling ChatGPT to do this, right? Internal assessment, external assessment, stakeholder engagement, right? So that's there now, right? What do you understand? And when you're doing, a lot of people, when they use ChatGPT, they try to tell it everything in one prompt. The best way to do it is layer, 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 layer. And that's what I'm doing. I'm layering it, right? So, yes, understood. Your goal is to gather the right input so you can recommend the optimal way forward for the land, factoring into these three key dimensions: personal context, financial situation, risk appetite, time horizon and preferences, passive income versus active development, market context, and ambitions, right? Great. However, we also need to understand the details of the land itself, right? So, where is it? How big it is? Does it have any restrictions, regulatory or infrastructure, etc., right? Do you understand? Now, you see, guys, if I had just asked ChatGPT in the beginning, what do you think I should do with a piece, it would have given me a huge amount of information and not know. But the point is, I'm using my consulting skills to supplement the approach ChatGPT will take, and I'm using my spider sense to say this is good and this is not good, right? So let's see what it comes back with. In addition to the personal context, marketing, and ambitions, you also need a land profile, right? Detailed information about the land itself. So we're going to do personal context, market context, ambitions, and land profile. And now, because it's understanding the context, because I told it we're going to send the client a questionnaire, it's come back to me with some, okay, would I? So I'll say, yes, please prepare the questionnaire, right? So let's see what it comes back with. So now what has it done? It's opened up a new page and it's given me this questionnaire. But one thing ChatGPT again, this is now we're talking how to use ChatGPT like a G. I'm not talking about using ChatGPT like the basic guys. So you can copy and paste this into a document. It's very difficult to follow, right? It's difficult to follow. So what I'll say is, please put the questions into a table format and prioritize them with just خلاص and prioritize them, right? Because in a table format it'll be much easier to access that insight. Okay, so let's see. So now hopefully what it should do is put it in a table format. So now, what has it done? It's given us very clear indication of the key questions that need to be asked, and we can now right. So even now, I'm not happy with what it's given me. I say, please prepare the table in the chat. So this is the chat. We're in the chat right now, and separate the table into the categories we discussed earlier. So now, here we go. This is what I wanted to see. This is now useful, right? So we need to see what, and this is the high priority, exact location, blah, 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 legal, regulatory, right? And then it's given us the personal context. So now imagine you were about to go and meet this client, right? And you were going to have a sit down with him, right? And as part of sitting down with him, you're going to, pick his brains and understand all this stuff. So you now have a questionnaire that you can just go through one by one, ask him, and then obviously you'd use your spider sense. Sometimes you don't need to ask some key questions, like asking him what is the competitor analysis. That's a dumb idea, right? Because he's going to say, if I tell you that, why am I paying you? Right? So we don't do that. We need to be intelligent about this, right? But we now have a questionnaire. Cool. So now that we have the questionnaire, okay, great. I have sent the questionnaire to the client. He has responded as such. So now what am I doing? What am I doing now? If I go back to so I've told ChatGPT how to act. I've told it, I'm giving it SQM in Jeddah near the airport. Right, 100,000 square meters near the airport. It's next to a logistics hub, right? It has access to infrastructure, right? So it's he owns the land fully. He owns a business that is involved in shipping, right? So I'm just giving it some of the context. I'm asking it to, I'm just saying, this is the type of, he has a maximum of 10 million SAR to invest. His investment profile is, or rather investment horizon is 10 years. Oh, sorry, not 10 years, 5 years, right? It is currently empty plot of land. So there's nothing on the land, but it's next to a logistics hub supporting Jeddah Airport. It has access to infrastructure. He owns the land fully. He owns business. He owns and his investment horizon is 5 years, right? Based upon which, so it's very unlikely, based upon which we need to present our initial hypotheses of what he could do with the land, right? Please prepare a short white paper addressed to Mr. Uzi Chand, right? From Boost Consulting, right? So boom, let's see what it comes back with, right? And I'm not a big fan of this. I prefer it when it answers in the chat. It's just my personal preference. I don't know how you guys feel, but that's just me, right? I much prefer it like this. Let's see what it comes back with. And remember, guys, here, right? Oh, sorry, consulting. It's a process, right? It's not a rush to get to the end point. Because when you rush to get to the end point, in many instances, you miss a huge amount of the buy-in process. The buy-in process of consulting is extreme. Going through the consulting at a pace which makes sense for the client, you're going to lose the client, and the client's just going to ignore kind of whatever insights you may have, right? So I'm not sure what's happened here. Let me just copy this and let's refresh that. So here we go. You stopped generating. Okay, let's see why it's not working. Oh. Please try again. Let's see what it comes back with. All right. Answer in the chat. All right, fine. It doesn't want it. So now we have a white paper. All right. So it understands that it's behaving like a management consultant, and now it needs to come back to the client now that they've given us their inputs in order to come back with some solutions. So again, if I just switched my brain off, right, which I don't recommend anyone do, I could copy and paste this and send this to the client. But now your spider sense, this is where it's important. And this is why I say, guys, ChatGPT is not there to replace you. It's there to enhance you, right? It's there to support you in doing things. But your spider sense, I promise you, you know, when people talk about job destruction because of AI, one thing it will not destroy is common sense, right? That's one element, at least initially. So, I mean, who knows, right? But initially, that's it. So let's go through the initial hypotheses that it's come up with, right? It's come up with logistics hub, warehousing hub, truck parking and service, customer service, light industrial park, a cross-dock facility, right? It's come up with these options. And I'm not entirely happy with these options, right? So, options that you have suggested in a table format and prepare some criteria let's be specific and analyze the option based on strategic relevance, financial relevance, or rather financial impact, operational ease, and return. Actually, no, that's return on investment won't be there. So let's say strategic, financial, operational, and market need, right? Let's see what it comes back with. Hopefully, so it's high. What I'm looking for is like a high, low, medium. Sorry, high, medium, low analysis. Right? Sorry, I need to switch my caps off. So let's see what it comes back with, right? And so this is what I'm saying. It's very easy to make ChatGPT create stuff, right? But ultimately, that's not what we're trying to do here, right? So it's doing the thing again. Let's see what it comes back with. So please prepare in the chat going forward. So let's see now. Okay, so here's the initial hypothesis. Here's what I asked it to do. So it's given me the different options, and it's started to look at, you know, what is the kind of strategic relevance to this particular person, the financial, the operational, and the market need, right? So it's giving me good insights. It's giving me good work. However, I'm not happy. What about, alhamdulillah, what about a retail option? Right? Because in industrial areas, what do you need, right? You need retail. Given me all the options, right? And I could say to it, give me as many, give me more options, and it'll give me more options, right? But again, it's not. ChatGPT still is reliant upon my insights. It's reliant upon my spider sense, right? And exactly as you would expect it in a real life project. When you're doing consulting projects, it's the senior guy who would do this with the analyst on the project. But again, this is why I'm worried for you guys, right? The analysts of this world are competing with this. You see what I'm saying? So the better senior people like myself get at using ChatGPT, the less reliant we will be on the junior guys. So again, be careful, guys. That's why I said you got to learn this stuff ASAP, man. Otherwise, you going down, right? So you see now, see, it's now updated that, right? So based on this, can you provide a scoring to help us reduce the options, right? Let's see what it comes back in a table format. So it's done exactly that. So based upon this scoring mechanism, it's 11 for logistics and warehousing hub and 11 for, okay, this is great. So we presented the two options to the client, Mr. Uzi, who is now in the toilet. I think, I don't know what he's doing. He just ran out of the room. We presented the two options to the client, Mr. Uzi, and he agrees with our analysis. We now need to complete a detailed financial assessment of each option. Sorry, let's not say financial, a feasibility assessment. Feasibility assessment of each option, right? What would you include in a detailed right? So I'm pushing the kind of boundaries of what ChatGPT can do a little bit further, right? So let's see. Well, like, you guys are bakhil, man. I'm just saying. When I do TikTok lives, I get hundreds of roses, man, and you guys are like, I'm on what, 3 roses? Yeah, forget you guys, man. I'm never gonna do this again. Khalas. Bakhil, man. That's like one of the only Saudi words with 10, 15. I appreciate, mashallah. Appreciate you. Okay, so anyway. So now ChatGPT knows so it understands what I was happy with and what I'm not happy with, and based upon which, again, market demand analysis, site analysis, again, it's put together a pretty decent structure for what this report could be. And it's given me indication of the key components what it needs to be, right? And this is the important part, right? This is the detailed business plan for each option and so on and so forth. So this is great. Wallah, super bakhil, man. Ultimately bakhil. Fine. So this is great. Can you... Okay. I want to Now, guys, if I told it to prepare the report, it would prepare it. But again, the report's information, the data it would use, it would be making it up. So it'll just be finding random shit on the internet and trying to say, yep, this is a good idea because of this, what I found on the internet. Ultimately, you would have to give it the inputs to help it do that on a step by step. And it's not as easy as just giving it information and do it, because it will give you a lot of nonsense, right? So I'm going to ignore that part. What I'm going to do now is I want to focus on the financial side of things, right? So it says here very clearly that this is the effectively the financial model is, this is what we need to do. We need to create this. So this is great. I want to focus initially on the financial model for the, what was the option? What was option 2? Forgotten now. Say worker accommodation, right? I want to create a projection in the chat for this project. The capex is 6 million SAR. The objective is to build 300 rooms for labor accommodation. The idea is to sell capacity to local businesses, local logistics businesses for their people. The OPEX is 10% of CAPEX per year. So we've got CAPEX, and I want you to reverse engineer what the price needs to be in order to make a gross margin of, let's say 30%, and a net margin of 10% from year 5 onwards. And what am I going to do now? I'm going to ask it my favorite thing. What do you understand? Let's see what it understands. So it's doing it all for me. See, this is what I'm saying, guys. You see, like from an analysis perspective, I'm telling it what I want it to do, but it's able to do it a million times faster than me, right? It's already telling me depreciation is assumed over 20 years straight line. This is typical for this type of, again, it hasn't done the analysis, but I know now that it's going to do the right thing, right? You need me to reverse engineer the required price per room per month such that the project gets a gross margin of blah, 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 right? Yes, please. Excellent. Thanks. Let's do it. There you go. Required monthly price of 278 reals per room. Now that is very cheap, right? So my spider sense is telling me now 278 reals per room. Man, how big are these rooms going to be? Because that's insane, right? But that's what it is. So my spider sense now, if I presented this to the client would be like, Fahad, bro, there's something wrong here. 270 reals, 78 reals per room. Guys, someone will take all of the rooms. Khalas, I absolutely am smashing my keyboard. That's why some of the buttons are missing. Anyway, so my spider sense is telling me, okay, 10 million SAR, and the OPEX is more like um, I don't know, 30% of capex per year. Can you redo the numbers, please? But okay, my keyboard is dying, right? But I use whatever the top subscription is. There's a new one that's like $200. I don't need that one, but I just use whatever the top one is before that one was introduced. Yes, please. Does your wife get jealous of how you talk to? Oh man. I know, G Valenti, that's come from a very personal place, man. I know you're struggling with yeah. So please show me in the chat. So now, what does it look at this? This is where ChatGPT becomes awesome, right? So again, no, doesn't matter. I know dudes, right? And I've worked with dudes, and you know, shout out to my homeboy Srikant. He's the first guy I ever met who could use Excel without using a mouse. Like he would do everything like shortcuts, right? He was sick at financial modeling, but he ain't as sick as ChatGPT. You know what I mean? But again, if you're good at analysis and stuff, but your spider sense is on point, then you're still better than ChatGPT. But if you're not good at the technical stuff, if you're not good at the actual coding, because what is financial modeling? It's a type of coding, right? So if you're not coding, if you're not good at the coding, but your spider sense is good, which is my case, ChatGPT is amazing. Alhamdulillah. You know what I'm saying? So again, ChatGPT is a beast, right? Okay, this is now much more digestible. I would like you to create 3 scenarios. You know, so basically what we're looking at is 3 scenarios, which is aggressive, realistic, and pessimistic. Mystic in terms of occupancy. And show me the results. Right? And now I'm going to show you why it sucks at PowerPoint, right? So look, in terms of it's giving me the model. I know, mashallah, that the model is good. I've tested it with my common sense and my spider sense, and now boom, aggressive. I want it to give me some scenarios. And sorry, my spelling here is atrocious, but let's see how it go. You guys don't understand, right? You guys don't understand how happy I am I can do this live on TikTok. I still need to figure out, because my handwriting, actually I'm really good at, my handwriting's really good. It's just because I'm drawing on the screen whilst it's facing up and it's very difficult to use. But as soon as I figure that out, it's shut down, man. But alhamdulillah. Appreciate you guys for sending all these roses. That's a total of probably about $1. So my current rate on TikTok is 50 cents an hour, man. I appreciate you guys. So let's see what it is. Ask ChatGPT to improve your handwriting. Oof, Rash the Flash, man. You were saying some nice things. Now you're, man, screw you. Okay. This is great. Can you, and I'm telling you now, this is where ChatGPT fails miserably. Can you put this into some PowerPoint slides? Let's see what it comes back. It'll say yes, but it's gonna be an absolute disaster. Unless it's completely changed my life and then actually is able to produce 6 slides. No, Goose Baker, unless you're buying a virtual coffee off my website, I don't want to know about your interesting domains, bro. I'm sorry to be so brutal, man. Well, I wrote the amount of people I've got. I think how many unread messages? I've got like 70 unread messages now. So everyone's reached out and everyone's gotten something interesting to offer me, but give me some money. That's what I want. I've got bills to pay, man. Got feed the peoples, the troops. Excellent presentation. What are your thoughts about I haven't used DeepSeek yet, funnily enough. Perfect. Can you export into a PPT file? Should be able to. You don't need to do either. All right, I'm gonna put pressure on Goose Baker. You don't need to do TikTok. You don't need to do PayPal. Go to my website, bro. You can do it. Bro, you know how much petrol that thing drinks? Active Technique, bro. I'm broke, bro. I got no money.
Sure, it's not.
Yeah. All right, let's see if it's aligned. Oh, did it do anything? Can't remember.
Because if you got a minute,
Yeah.
a question about being
Confidentiality.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, bros. Please do not put government data on there. You'll get fired, number one, and number two, you're breaking the law. So don't do that. This live is about to finish. Okay, so what I've asked it to do is put it together in a presentation. It's now opened it. I know it's gonna suck, but let's see, just in case it doesn't. So, can you guys see this? Yeah. Worker accommodation financial scenario. I tried to give this presentation to one of my clients. They'll be like, what? I paid you how much for this? So yeah. But the point is into different formats, right? So yeah, that's basically it. So now what we've done is we've gone through, and I guess, look, the point I was trying to prove here, guys, right? Oops, sorry. I don't know where that thing's gone, but anyway. I guess the point I was trying to prove here, guys, is that with ChatGPT, it can do things that you currently do much faster than you.